Hi everybody, this video is about chapters 6 and 7. When in doubt, it's from Shakespeare or the Bible. It's also going to have some tidbits thrown in from chapter 5, which you did not have to read, but has some really interesting information as well. So starting off, we're talking about allusions. To refresh your memory, an allusion is any reference inside of a text to another text, something from culture, literature, art, history, etc. So, there's no such thing as a wholly original piece of literature, says Foster on page 29. And that's true. Archetypes, especially situational archetypes like hero's journey, like we talked about before, are repeating patterns, and many stories use these archetypes as a building block and then add to and change them as they see fit. So, no wholly original piece of literature, meaning that stories borrow from each other all the time. And when they do that, they also can allude to each other or reference each other, which adds to the text, helps you understand what you're reading better. So, 2. The more you consume, the more allusions you'll recognize. Now, I was tempted to put the more you read, the more allusions you'll recognize, but that's not entirely true because allusions can come from way more than just books. History, culture also play a huge role in where authors pull their allusions. 3, the more you practice, the more allusions you'll recognize. So again, allusions aren't going to jump out at you, or they're not going to be bold or underlined or anything like that. It's not going to be introduced to you like, oh, like in Of Mice and Men, dot, dot, dot. Okay, you have to be able to read something and know, like, oh, that sounds just like Of Mice and Men, so this must be an allusion. Maybe there's some sort of theme connection I can make between those two texts. So again, it takes practice, and that ties into number 4. Readers must reconsider characters, situations, and events in the novel to find and make meaning of allusions. So again, allusions aren't going to be bold and highlighted and underlined for you, but they're also might not be word for word something that you've seen before. It might be kind of like it, similar to it in some way. So, keep an open mind when you're reading something and always be pausing to ask yourself, does this remind me of something? What could it connect to? Again, history, culture, and literature are where you're going to see allusions as well as where any allusion could come from. So it's important for you to be knowledgeable about all those topics. The second bullet point here talks about the concept of intertextuality, and that's what Foster explains is the ongoing interaction between poems and stories. So, for example, all authors today are aware of Shakespeare and all of his works, and so anything they write is going to have knowledge of those texts and might reference it. It might even start a dialogue between the two. It might bring up a theme from Hamlet and question it a little bit further, take the theme to the next level, or try and maybe even challenge Shakespeare and say, I think you were wrong about this theme. What if it goes in this direction? Okay. The third bullet point, allusions help you. So our goal is to get you to that level 3 reading, deep understanding, deep meaning. So allusions are going to help you make sense out of what you're reading. If you know there's some sort of similarity between a situation that you're reading in a book and a situation of a book that you've read before, it's going to help you draw those connections and find them. It's also going to help you understand the text on a deeper, more meaningful level. If you know the author is trying to make a connection between these two things, you can more easily find out why they're doing that. All right, so let's look at a few common modern day examples. What do these things have in common? The Rise of the Planet of the Apes, The Simpsons, She's the Man, The Lion King, and Family Guy. They all allude to Shakespeare. Okay, now in chapter 6, Thomas Foster talks about why authors reference Shakespeare so much. And there are 3 main reasons. The first one is that Shakespeare's work is very well known. A lot of people attend public school and are forced to read Shakespeare for at least 3 out of 4 years of their high school career, so they're pretty familiar with at least Romeo and Juliet, maybe some Caesar, maybe some Hamlet, etc., etc. The second thing is Shakespeare sounds good. So Shakespeare has a way, there's a reason why he's so popular. He has a way with language. He makes things sound beautiful. He phrases things in a unique way. And a lot of the phrases that we use in the English language have already been coined by him. He was the first one to say them. So when you quote Shakespeare, you know that what's coming out of your mouth Sounds nice. The third bullet point, Shakespeare's work gives authority. So the reason why Shakespeare is so well renowned is because, if you look at the quote at the bottom, the stories are great, the characters compelling, the language fabulous. Shakespeare is one of the best known and highly regarded authors in history. And so, why not, if you have to reference something, reference a story that exists that's already amazing, a character who's already memorable, or a phrase that already is, well known and beloved in our language. Okay, a question I see or get a lot, and sorry about the typo on this title, is well, if Shakespeare's so amazing and popular, why don't I see more allusions to him? Okay, you're always telling me that Shakespeare's alluded to so much. Oh, I never see it. Well, honestly, that's because you haven't read that much Shakespeare yet. And it's nothing against you. It's just that, in high school, you start small with Romeo and Juliet and then you build from there. So the more you read or watch Shakespeare plays, the more parallels and references you'll find in literature, film, and TV shows. Okay, moving on to the Bible. So Foster explains in chapter 7 that uh, authors often reference the Bible for some of the same reasons as they reference Shakespeare. One, it's generally universally known because um, our culture is predominantly a Christian one. In our cultural references, we see the Bible all the time. So a lot of people are familiar with it even if they are not religious. And two, it generally has a clear moral message. So if an author uses a story from the Bible or references it in their text, you can tell maybe the theme that they're trying to get at or they're trying to explore based on what the moral message is of that particular story. Now, some people say, well, we're not supposed to be really talking about the Bible in school, etc., etc. I don't know that much about the Bible. Well, we don't have to know that much about the Bible or religion in order to understand the purpose of an allusion from the Bible. So, for example, here we have the situation: Snow White eats an apple given to her by an evil figure, immediately ending the life she knew and throwing her into a deep sleep. Now, you don't have to know too much about the Bible to see some parallels between Snow White and Eve in this situation. Okay, Eve takes the apple from the serpent, bites it. She's not supposed to have it. God gets angry and ends her life in the Garden of Eden, kicked out. All right, so you can see the biblical connection between Snow White, Eve, the snake, and the forbidden fruit in this situation. Here I have a list of some other commonly referenced biblical stories that you might be familiar with, even if you are not religious. Okay, so hopefully at least one or two of these are jumping out at you as familiar. And if you look at the last bullet there, biblical names and places. Again, authors don't just say, I think I'm going to name my character Bob. Well, they have any name in the entire universe to pick from. If they're picking a name that's, you know, predominant in the Bible, or there's a famous Bible story about a person with the same name, there might be a reason for that. And that's something you should always be questioning. Okay, so to summarize, why allusions again? Why are they so important? They help us add meaning to what you read, and regardless of what the allusion is referring to. Think about an example of Family Guy, okay? Constant allusions to history, culture, art, literature, etc. If you're watching an episode of Family Guy and they make a joke and everybody else laughs and you don't, wouldn't it make the episode more enjoyable for you if you know what that allusion was for? It would help you understand better and maybe even tie into the plot, help you understand the plot a little bit better. Okay, second bullet. The best way to see and understand allusions is to be reading. Read as much as you can. Watch as much as you can. And learn, okay, especially history. Or cultural information, and be sure to keep an open mind when reading literature because, again, it's not going to be handed to you. These allusions might be sprinkled in secretly, kind of sneakily, and you got to make sure that you are looking carefully and keeping an open mind about what you could possibly be seeing. Okay, so that's the end of this video.